Before we get started today, this church, or this chart, this church too, this chart is the creation of a man named Don Estes, and he has a website out there, and I meant to get the name of that website, but I forgot to do it before we left. I will send it to all of y'all. This chart is his blue chart, this origin, history, and destiny of universe-reality. And all I've done is taken the blue off of it and highlighted the colors and brought them out a little bit. The reason I did that is so that we can see it a little bit better in this class. And what I'd like y'all to do is, after the class, come by here and look at it. Now this is going to be here every day till we get all the way through this chart. So I want y'all to feel free to come up and look through it and read through it, and that's why it's here. Okay. Next week we're going to have one more.
It goes across or it goes down and down?
Okay, that's exactly what I'm going to take right now. It starts at the top corner here where the Universal Father starts, right? And you'll see this little red line. That's the red line of God the Father, and it starts out with the thought adjuster. This red line, if you follow it down, it goes through the Creator Son, Michael, Jesus, right? It goes down through all His creative sons, right? And if you follow the red line all the way across, it goes to all the Adams and Eves and all that thing. That's where man comes in. And then when we start to get our thought adjusters, it starts back up right over here. Pre-personal thought adjusters from the Father. And then it goes all the way back up. This red line goes through the paradise, right? Through the absolute spirits, which we're going to learn about. And then it comes all the way back, and you'll see this red line all the way across here. This is what they call the personality gravity circuit, and it returns to the person of the Father. So this chart actually starts here, goes down all the way to the bottom, and comes back up. That's the pathway. All right? Now we're going to study it a little bit different. You'll also notice here there are two other lines here. The spiritual gravity returns lasting value to the eternal Son. It works the same way with the eternal Son. It starts up here, goes down through the qualified absolute, and all the way down, and comes all the way back up to the eternal Son. Okay? Now, guess what the third one is? Infinite Spirit. That's right. And it's the kind of yellowish gold line here. And it does the same thing. And if you follow the yellowish gold down, you'll hit all the associated helping spirits from the infinite Spirit. Starts out with the solitary messengers, goes through the 7 supreme spirits, local creative spirits, our local mother spirit, right? All the angels, the reflective spirits, everything, that's all in the gold. And the reason it's all in the gold or the yellow is because all those are originated with the infinite Spirit. So if you follow the colors, you can immediately look at something and you can tell whether it comes from the Father, the Son, or the Spirit, right? Now this works the same way. As these spirits go all the way down to human beings, they help us get right back up to the absolute spirits, which takes us right back to the third source and center. Right? And that's how you read this chart. Now we're going to do it a little bit different. We're going to start out in this corner, and we're going to work our way all the way to this corner today. And I'm going to try to, I doubt I'll get all the way through it, get all the way through the paradise level before the end of the day, or at least before we get to the end of this presentation you have in front of you. Right? If it takes us a week, it takes us 2 weeks, that's okay. The original plan was to do this in 12 weeks. Now I'm going to tell y'all, since we're doing this in our regular church setting, our church meeting, I'm not going to get in a hurry. Okay? That's okay with y'all. We're going to do this till we get done with it. Just like we do our regular studies on Wednesday night. If that's okay with everybody here. And by the time we get to the bottom of this chart, we're going to go down this side, and we're going to go down this side on some stuff. We'll hit the middle, and then we'll start here at the beginning of time on earth, and we're going to work our way all the way back up on our trip to paradise. And before we get done, we'll go from our creation and all the things we stop at and all the beings we run into all the way to paradise, and we'll get right back up here to the Universal Father. So you're going to get a bird's eye view of the process that will happen from the time you die till the time you get to paradise. Does that make sense? Okay? And then, by then, you will understand everything on this chart. And if you understand everything on this chart, you're going to understand 90% of the Rapture book. Right? What will you not understand? The life of Christ. Yeah. That's going to be a whole different session, ball game. If y'all want to do that, we can do that too. But we got a lot of work to get through this. Now, when you see the third chart I prepared for you, and Diane's got to look at it, we're going to cover every being that's on this chart. So, you know how I always harp about the registry?
Paper 30.
Paper 30. With the other chart, we're going to get through every single being that's told about in the universe to us. There's a lot of unrevealed, but we will at least hit every single one of them for a couple minutes before we get done. Okay? So when we get done, you will understand the personality register, you'll understand this chart, you'll understand the other chart I'll bring next week, and you'll have a pretty good basic understanding of all the beings, all the concepts, and your pathway back to God. Does that sound fair?
Yes.
Okay? Is that what y'all wanted to do?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So it's going to be a little bit different. We're going to go start with these slides. Y'all are going to read just like you do in the book. Okay? We're each going to take the slide. We'll go all the way to the end of the slide. As we go through it, we're going to discuss it just like we always do. Okay? So the reason you got the slides is you can go home and you can read it ahead of time, you can read afterwards, you can make notes on it, you can go to the book, and we're just going to hit the important things that I thought would help you understand the topic that we're talking about. But there's more on every single topic. We're not going to read the whole book. All right? Not just too much to do that. So by the time we get to the end of this, I'm hoping we'll finish it in about 3 months, but if it takes us 6 months, anybody have any objections to that? No. Okay. So I'd rather do it right than to do it halfway, right? Okay. So here we go. Let's start with this very first slide. And Bill, why don't you take the first slide? Okay. Oh, do you have?
I don't have that.
Oh, that's right. That slide is not. Y'all don't have a copy of this slide.
Right.
It would be on the very front. This is the
Is it the
creation.
Universal Father page?
No.
Well, this quote is right
It's
here.
at the beginning of it. Yeah. So if you want to read it from there, you can.
Oh, okay.
The very first page it says Universal Father. But before we go into that, I actually wanted to do something else before that. There's an acknowledgement right before that. Let's go through that and we'll come back to this. Let's do the acknowledgement first. I can go forward and back with this. You are. You're up at the screen.
Acknowledgement.
Bill, you want to take that?
Okay. In formulating the succeeding presentations having to do with the portrayal of the character of the Universal Father and the nature of his paradise associate, together with an attempted description of the perfect central universe and the encircling 7 super-universes, we ought to be guided by the mandate of the super-universe rulers which direct that we shall, in all our efforts to reveal truth and coordinate the essential knowledge, give preference to the highest existing human concepts pertaining to the subject to be presented. We may resort to pure revelation only when the concept of presentation has had no adequate previous expression by the human mind.
Hold up there for a second. So this is what we're talking about. The Universal Father, right? And what they're saying here in this acknowledgement is they want to reveal the Father to us. Okay? They want to reveal all this information to us, but they don't have words for us to understand it. So they're going to try to use as many human concepts as possible so that we can understand a little bit about the Father. Now, do you think they tell us everything about the Father?
No,
Not even close.
not
You
even
know?
close.
This is just the tip of the iceberg, as they say, right? And I thought it was important to hit this acknowledgement. This is the revelators. This is called a revelation, right? The fifth epochal revelation. They're trying to explain to us there's so much knowledge here, there's no possible way they could do their job. They say, Michael's brought a group of them in there and says, okay, I think it's time that we straighten out all this mess that man has made about the story of me and the story of creation and the story of my Father. So we're going to try to straighten this out a little bit, right? So that they understand a little bit more and they can become closer to the Father. What's Michael always doing? Pointing to that. That's right. That's all he does, points to God. Never does this, does he? He always does this, right? That's why he's our example. So let's keep going.
Okay. Successive planetary revelations of divine truth invariably embrace the highest existing concepts of spiritual values as part of the new and enhanced coordination of planetary knowledge. Accordingly, in making these presentations about God and his universe associates, we have selected as the basis of these papers more than 1,000 human concepts representing the highest and most advanced planetary knowledge of spiritual values and universe meaning. Wherein these human concepts, assembled from the God-known mortals of the past and present, are inadequate to portray the truth as we are directed to reveal it, we will unhesitatingly supplement them. For this purpose, drawing upon our own superior knowledge of the reality and divinity of the paradise deities and the transcendent residential universe.
Okay, so all these concepts are human. Do y'all understand this as much as possible? So you think you're going to find quotes from other people in the Urantia book? Yeah. Of course you will. Of course you will.
Because it's already been thought.
Because it's already been taught. They try to take as many concepts as possible from all over the writings, all over the world. So if you go through the Urantia book, they used 1,000 individuals. But don't you think there's probably 5,000 or 10,000 quotes from those individuals in the book in different places? Probably so. So if somebody comes to you and they're reading the book and say, wait a minute, this is straight out of the Bible. What do you say? Duh. Yes, of course it is.
Hello.
You know, it's a human concept, so that's where they got it at. You have a...
Yeah, the question I have is, does this pertain to the revelation of God?
Yes.
Or also...
The whole book. The whole book.
Okay, so that including the purely physical facts
Physical
of the
facts
creation.
also. Right.
Right. So
And that includes, Jill, the ones that we know are not exactly accurate about the physical facts.
that's the point of my question.
Yeah. The reason being is we know that during 1934, 35, 36, they had a base of knowledge about the universe that was very small compared to what we had even today, right? We have with the Hubble telescope, we know about universes that was not even conceived of, right? So they've tried to give us a cosmology of the time and the day, and they say in here, this will need to be changed within 1,000 years, it will be totally wrong, right? Because they try to give us a concept that we can understand, right? So when you read the book, especially the cosmology and things like that, don't take it as gospel. Don't try to argue to somebody that there's only 10,000 worlds in this solar system, because it's growing constantly. It's just like us. We're planet 606 of Satania, right? There's 619 inhabited planets they were working on when this was written. Don't you think that probably by now there might be 700 or 800 even that's been inhabited by now? So it constantly changes. It's a growing thing. Revelation does not stop either, right? And that's the whole point of this acknowledgement too. Revelation, each generation needs a new revelation. But they can't keep writing the book every 20 years, you know, when a new group of babies are born. You know, it's not practical. But they say that this revelation should be good for us for about another 1,000 years. You know, in other words, it's accurate enough that you can bring the knowledge to yourself, at least for the next 1,000 years. Right? And then what will happen? Who knows? Maybe by then we'll get a Trinity teacher son and a magisterial son, right? Okay. Did that answer your question, Jim?
Yes.
All right, whenever you're ready.
We are fully cognizant of the difficulties of our assignment. We recognize the impossibility of fully translating the language of the concepts of divinity and eternity into the symbols of the language of the finite concepts of the mortal mind. But we know that there dwells within the human mind a fragment of God, and there sojourn with the human soul the Spirit of truth. And we further know that these spirit forces conspire to enable material man to grasp the reality of these spiritual values and to comprehend the philosophy of universe meaning. But even more certainly, we know that these spirits of the divine presence are able to assist man in the spiritual appropriation of all truth, contributory to the enhancement of the ever-progressing reality of personal religious experience, God consciousness.
Read that last bit for me too.
Indicted by an Obankan divine counselor, chief of the corps of super-universe personalities, assigned to portray on Urantia the truth concerning the paradise deities and the universe of universes.
Okay, so this is the divine counselor, and we're going to learn about those a little bit later. But he's trying to say to us, there's no way in the human mind that we can understand all the concepts relating to these, right? We've got 15 trinities right across here, okay? We're not going to explain all 15 trinities. I'm going to explain some of them, but some of them are beyond human understanding. Now, if they cannot explain them to us, you think I can? I can't, right? So what can I explain to you? I can try to take the little bit I know and try to relate it to you so that you can formulate your own opinions about these, right? And that's what we're going to do, right? Okay. Let's go on to the next slide.
If I may add something, one way to understand that we cannot understand it is that we are talking about God who is infinite, and we are finite.
We are finite.
Therefore, we have a little challenge now.
Yeah, we have no relational database in our head to pull the information from. Now, we're going to talk about the finite, the infinite, and the absolute. And I'm going to give you the definition that's right in these papers that I put together. And these are straight out of the book, too. So when you get done, you should have a pretty good understanding about what is absolute, what is finite, what is infinite, what is sub-absolute, those sort of things. Okay? And by understanding these concepts, we got a glossary. I can tell you on the very back of this book I gave you, the last, I believe, 6 or 8 pages is a who's who and a glossary. And those are explanations of terms. Okay? The reason I stuck this in there with us, this is work that Don Estes done when he put this chart together. And the reason he did that is, as you read through this material, if you don't understand these basic words, you can't understand the concepts. You need a glossary, you need a vocabulary to be able to put the concepts with the words. Now, what makes the difference is this. As soon as we get into God the Father, they're going to start mentioning some of these words. And you can read it as many times as you want to, but if you don't understand the definitions of the words you're reading, then it makes no sense. And so what we're going to try to do is enlighten you on the meaning so that when you read through it, you go, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. Right? Because this is supposed to be understandable to humans. That's why they work so hard on it. So if it's supposed to be understandable to humans, then somebody has to be able to understand it, right? And that's what we're going to try to do. And I have a pretty good basic understanding of all of the books, so I have a good starting point to help teach y'all to get to that point, right? Now, am I smarter than y'all? No, I'm not. Do I have more enlightenment than y'all? No, I don't. Why do I have this? Is because I've studied the book so long. When you study the book as long as I have, you'll have the same knowledge, right? Now, you may have a totally different interpretation when you get where you've studied the book for 40 years, right? And that's fine. We're all individuals, right? I'm just pointing you in the right direction. Okay, let's keep going to the next slide here. Okay, first slide. This is a reference slide for y'all. And you can see here, this is a picture of the entire known universe of universes, the outer space levels, all the way out to everything that's developing. Okay? And if you look closely at this, you can see paradise in the middle, right? Yeah, let me get my little thing. What happened to my little flashlight that was in that bag?
I don't know.
In that green bag? Should be in that green bag.
In your green bag. Little laser.
Okay, so we got paradise in the center, right? We got Havana and the work of the Father, the Son, and the Spirit surrounding it, right? And the Havana, 7 levels surrounding that, right? And all the worlds. And then on the outside of that is the dark gravity bodies. Okay, there's two belts of them. One goes one direction, the other goes the other. Okay, and they do that for a reason. The dark gravity bodies help balance gravity. Okay, if it wasn't for this belt going one direction and the belt going the other, gravity would pull all matter into the center. You know, so we just collapse as a universe, basically. But that's what that does, and we're going to see a couple different pictures of this as we go. And then on the outer belt of that, now why can't you see paradise? There's two reasons. I want to explain something that is real confusing to everybody. People think that if it wasn't for these dark gravity space bodies, that you would be able to see paradise.
Oh, space bodies.
Yeah.
Oh,
But I'm going to tell you, you wouldn't be able to. And let me tell you why.
it's a different matter.
It's a different matter, number one. What's the other reason?
Is it matter? Paradise?
It's not matter.
Is there time in paradise?
We're going to go through that, absolutum and what it's made out of a little bit later. But that is one reason. But there's another reason. Okay?
It's covered by light.
It's light.
Light.
It's light is the reason we couldn't see it. Paradise itself has a luminosity that comes from the Spirit of God, number one, the infinite Spirit and the Son. And they call this a spiritual luminosity. Okay, and it's like a white light. And if you know anything about the range of colors, white light covers up all colors. Right. So you know paradise is a colorful, beautiful place. But if you have this white light that's so tremendous in there, even if you put a telescope towards you, you wouldn't see it because of the white light.
Possibly because of the limitations of our eyes and our vision.
That's true too. That's true too.
It's also a white light with no heat,
White light.
so there's no friction in the
That's
light
right. No
wave.
friction, everything. So because of the luminosity of paradise, anything inside that dark gravity space belt, you wouldn't see anyway.
Paradise is infinite, isn't it?
Well, no. Paradise itself is not infinite.
In space, it's not?
No. It's not. It's the largest collection of mass, material, in all the universes. Supposedly, if you looked at this picture correctly, if you took paradise, this little paradise, and you made it as big as this room, okay, it still wouldn't be all the matter. In other words, paradise mass is larger than all the 7 super universes and the 4 outer space levels.
Stuck in it.
Yeah, so if you looked at this picture correctly, this center part would be so big that by the time you got into the outer ones, you wouldn't have a place big enough to portray it. You follow me?
That's all of paradise.
That's the Isle of Paradise. The other thing is this. With this large area of dark space bodies surrounding this, the large mass of paradise, it's hard to even imagine these dark space bodies. The reason they go opposite directions is this. They balance gravity, okay? And it's the movement of these dark bodies in opposite directions that allow small amounts of gravity to escape in between the bodies, okay? So it works as a buffer between paradise and the outer first super universes.
Do you mean that there's two belts? One goes one way, one goes the other way?
One goes the other way. One goes clockwise, the other goes counterclockwise.
Isn't that the barrier between of time also? Outside the belt, there's time and
No, actually, time starts at paradise, the top of paradise. Even though it's timeless and spaceless, but time itself starts at the top of paradise. And we're going to see that in the slide a little bit. But it actually starts at the top of paradise. Now, keep in mind, all of paradise and I believe Havana too is timeless.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. It is timeless.
That's what I meant.
So first question, that rotation in 2 directions, is it a plane rotation, or is it 3-dimensional, or even more dimension that we can think
It's
of?
3-dimensional. It's more of a, we're going to see another slide of that too, but it's more like a Maltese cross. Starts at paradise, and it goes out, comes all the way out, and comes back in on the underneath side of paradise. So if you look at a cross section, which you'll see in the book, in our papers here in a minute, paradise kind of looks like, if you looked at it dead from the side, it would be this enormous mass of universes that looks like this. Okay? Like big bubbles.
Like the hourglass.
Like an hourglass.
Okay,
Right.
that's where that comes
That's where that comes from.
That's similar to the, I was just reading recently about the aurora borealis, and when we have the sun rays that gets through, it goes from the North Pole to the South Pole. And
That it works exactly the same way.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. You know, everything in the universe has a purpose, and you're going to see that as we go on. So, okay, anyway, these are the 7 super universes in which we live, and we're way out here. I don't know which one of these is the 7th, but I'm going to say this is the 7th for right now. We're way out here on the edge of the 7th, facing out to the first outer space level. So we have a vantage point here that all these other universes doesn't have unless you live on the edge, and that is we can see the developing universes out in the first outer space level. We can't quite see out to the second outer space level, but we can see through the first outer space level. So our Hubble telescope, when they point it out the right direction, they can watch the universes developing. You know, so you see all these all these planets and everything coming into existence.
Nebula.
Yeah, all the nebula. That's what they're seeing.
Well, they actually have a picture that you can find on the internet. The Hubble telescope was focused on a dark section of the sky, and then it had it focused on there for quite a while. And it's amazing how much hit it from what perceived to be a dark section of the sky.
That brings up another point. Talking about those dark space bodies. There are so many having 2 belts that even if you could see through these 2 belts of dark space bodies, that was the whole point of this about paradise. You cannot see paradise. Why? See, this is a hard concept to get because of the light.
Right.
There's no color return. Now, if they used infrared, they would probably see mass or something like that, but the trouble is they can't get past the dark space bodies. You know all these dark holes in space? That's what these are, is the dark space bodies. They absorb light as it goes by, so it just goes in, it doesn't come back out, and that's why.
Don't they call that
Dark holes?
dark hole?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah. People think they're portals to go on to another universe, but they're actually just light-absorbing bodies. Okay? So, okay, let's keep
Can
going.
I ask another question?
Yeah.
You mentioned the central universe in paradise to be spaceless and timeless, but spaceless. So, can you explain the concept of space and the concept of matter and the difference? Or is it coming next?
Well, we're going to go over that a little bit more in detail a little bit later. If you'll somebody write that question, we will cover that. Okay, I don't want to get too involved in that because we'll never get to God the Father if we do, because that's a whole topic in itself, really. But we will go through that. Now, let me do another picture. Go to the next picture. Is a close-up of the paradise and the 7 super universes, right? And it says here, you'll notice, well, I don't see all this slide because of this, but the outer dark bodies revolve in clockwise. The one right above it says the other one revolves counterclockwise, so they're 2 different directions, right? And these pictures are really just for your reference. Okay. All right, the Universal Father. And I need my little, I never did find, where is that green bag?
It's over there.
Huh?
It's over there.
I need a marker steer. So we're going to start up here. I'm going to point something out to you. See how this is red right here? And everything having to do with the Universal Father, outcroppings of the Universal Father, deity, and return to the Universal Father's in red. So I'm going to draw you a picture. My art skills aren't fantastic, but when we get to a certain point, you'll understand why I did it this way. Okay? Let me hand over the Sharpies first. Okay. So we're going to start with the Universal Father, right? And this is going to be our representation of the Universal Father, right? And I'll put Father up here. First, source, and center, right? That's this circle right here, right? Okay, so let's get started with the Universal Father. And let's see, who's next? G. Did he go to the restroom?
Mhm.
Huh?
Probably.
Probably. Okay. Do you want to read or you want to skip over? Okay. You want to take the Universal Father?
The Universal Father is the God of all creation, the first source and center of all things and beings. First, think of God as a creator, then as a controller, and lastly, as an infinite upholder. The truth about the Universal Father had begun to dawn upon mankind when the prophets said, "You, God, are alone. There is none beside you. You have created the heaven and the earth, the heaven and the heaven of heavens, with all their hosts. You preserve and control them. By the sons of God were the universe is made. The Creator covers himself with light as with a garment and stretches out the heavens as a curtain. Only the concept of the Universal Father, one God in the place of many gods, enable mortal man to comprehend the Father as the divine Creator and infinite controller."
Okay. Hold up there for a minute, Phyllis. This is what we're talking about right here, right? The Universal Father. Now, this over here, when we start talking about the unqualified absolute, the universal absolute, unqualified, or the qualified absolute, and the eventuated order, the eventuated ultimate, and the supreme, which we've heard a lot about the supreme, right? Do you think these are many gods? No. That's the point I want to make here. It says right here, there is only one what? One God. All right? And people miss this that study the Urantia book. There's only one universal Father. Not the original Son, not the conjoint actor. There's only one God the Father, right? When they act as the Trinity, they are part of the first deity. But the universal Father, over here, is what? The first thought.
The first thought.
Okay? The creation, the beginning of all thoughts, right? All right? And that's important to understand. Now we're going to study on Wednesday night, what? Universal unity, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
That's closely, it's the perfect time to do this because this is so closely related to this first top piece. Okay? And when they talk about universal unity, they aren't talking about living together and kumbaya and peace and love and harmony, are they? They're talking about the unity of the Father in all things. All right? And this is important for us to understand that these beings are not separate from the Father. They're part of the Father. That's the unity they're talking about. Even though they're considered a separate being, are they really separated from the Father? No. They're part of
It's
the Father.
more or less like a different aspect.
Different aspect of the Father, like a personality aspect, right? Or a habit of the Father, right? The reason I use habit is because of the way the Father thinks and acts and does. These are the results of the Father. They are inevitable. They couldn't be helped. You know? It's just like me or you. When you were born and you learned to ride a bike, right? Does that make you God of the bike? No. No. You just have a different habit, right? You have to learn to balance. You have to learn to push the pedals to go forward. You have to do all these things to learn how to ride a bike. Well, when God acts in the universe, He does it through specific forces, right? And these specific forces inevitably end up creating these, right? Does that make sense? Makes it not so.
Are we ever going to meet those people over there?
These people over here,
Are you going to meet them?
we're going to meet God the Supreme.
Okay.
Okay, because that's the experiential God. This is part of the finite God, right? And us being finite beings, we will have to recognize the Supreme before we get to God the Father. They're part of the 7 levels of God here. See this? God the sevenfold?
Yep.
Okay, before we can recognize even the eternal Son, or the conjoint actor, we have to get through the Supreme, right? Okay? Is this taking some of the mystery out of this?
Yes.
A little bit? Okay. Well, let's keep going.
You ready for
Yeah.
it? The actuality of the existence of God is demonstrated in human experience by the indwelling of the divine presence. The spirit monitor sent from paradise to live in the mortal mind of man and there to assist in involving the immortal soul of eternal survival. The presence of this divine adjuster in the human mind is disclosed by three experiential phenomena.
Experiential phenomena. That's right. Hold it up. Right there. This is what we're talking about. See, this is the first outcropping of what we're talking about. The universal Father dwells each individual creature via the pre-personal thought adjuster. Now, this thought adjuster is a fragment of God, right? Why is it called pre-personal? Somebody tell me. Y'all already know
I
this.
was gonna ask you.
Oh, okay. It's called pre-personal because it does not have personality. It has the will and the knowledge of God. Does that make sense? Not the personality of God. Where does it get the personality? It doesn't get personality till it fuses with one of his children. That's why it's called a thought adjuster, right? In order for this thought adjuster to become real in the sense of us, it has to fuse with us. And once we fuse with that thought adjuster, that's when we become sons of God. Right?
Right now, we're faith sons.
We're faith sons of God.
Pre-sons.
Pre-sons,
I like
right? That's right.
Not
We're
fake, but faith, right?
yeah, we're preemies, as they say, right? Okay, so that's where that thought adjuster comes in, that father fragment, right? Does that make sense about personality? The pre-personal? Does it? Okay.
I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory, but it's kind of an odd concept.
It's an odd concept, not something we run into every day.
I have some question about that, but I will wait until.
Yeah, we're going to go over that a little bit later. Okay. All right. Let's go to the next paragraph.
Number 1, the intellectual capacity for knowing God, God consciousness. The spiritual urge to find God, God seeking. The personality craving to be like God, the wholehearted desire to do Father's will.
Okay. And that's us trying to do. Okay. Let's go on to the next slide. Okay. Let's start out with some of these important terms that we don't know anything about, right? Let me switch sides over here. Am I in your way? Am I better over there? This is a picture of the different levels of the universe. Okay? You have to think of this as paradise, the Havana level. Remember the picture? The universe is right around paradise. And the super universes, right? That's what we're in, right? Okay, see the paradise level? Absolute. The paradise level, everything is absolute. It's timeless and spaceless. And that's a hard concept for us to understand. Paradise itself being spaceless, it has no location in space because it is the center of the universe. Now, I know that sounds like double talk, but it's not. That's why they call it absolute. It's spaceless in the sense that everything comes from paradise. All gravity comes from paradise. All spiritual gravity comes from paradise. All mindal gravity comes from paradise. All force comes from paradise, right? There's nothing that does not originate that does not come from paradise, right? So that makes paradise spaceless, even out to the outer space levels. You think about it. And they call this absolutum. Okay, this is the material of paradise. And in order for the mechanical, physical controllers to create these universes, they have to have a primordial matter. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Okay?
Absolutum?
Absolutum, yeah.
A-B-S-O-L-U-T?
Yeah, it's in the glossary.
Okay.
You can look it up. I think that's the one of paradise, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but I think that's it. Yeah. Okay, you find it?
Yep.
Okay. Absonite. When you think of absonite, everybody gets lost on absonite. They can't, what in the heck is absonite? Okay? Absonite is a combination of absolute and finite. You see that? You put those two words together, what do you get? You get absonite, right? That makes sense? So absonite is time, space, transcendent. This is the transcendent. This is the Havana level. This is the super universe that surrounds paradise itself. Is it part of paradise? No. Okay? It's part of Havana. It's a separate entity. Right? But in that, it does have time that's transcendent. In other words, they don't keep track of time like we do. It's not to the finite that time comes into account. So when you get to Havana, it don't matter how long it takes you to get from Havana to paradise, does it? Because there is no time. Right?
But there's a sequence, right?
There's a sequence of events. That's right.
Roger, there's
So
7 rings or levels, but there's
7 levels.
how many spheres?
70
Billion?
billion. Yeah, I think something like that. 70 million, I think.
And so a guy would think that if these were, I don't know if they're rotating, but they are going in different bands in different
Right.
directions, being there's movement,
Right.
there would need to be time.
No.
No.
No. That's why they call it time, space, transcendent. In other words, it transcends over time and space. It's very much like paradise. Paradise is stationary. See, people think paradise spins. It doesn't. Paradise is stationary. So if you're on the north end of paradise, on the edge, and you go through 10 billion years, you will still be on the north end of paradise, on the edge. You won't be moving.
It's because it's like an anchor.
Because it's like an anchor. That's right.
I
Now,
have a question, Roger.
yeah.
So this might be off topic, but I have to ask you anyway. So why did Jesus say to the thief on the cross, "Someday you'll be with me in paradise"?
That's exactly what he meant. Let me think about this. That finite being will go through the 7-dimensional worlds, won't he? He'll go to the headquarters, right? He'll go to Jerusalem. Then he'll end up on where? Salvington. And he'll meet Jesus, right? At that point, he'll get his papers that he's a full qualified spirit able to go on to the next level. First level spirit, right? Then he'll go through the minor sector, major sector. And then finally, he'll stand before the Ancients of Days on Universe-Rea, okay? When he gets to Universe-Rea, what's the next stop? Havana. It's not paradise. They take you to Havana, right? You have to go through all the levels, all the rings of Havana, all the billion worlds of Havana, and then you finally get to paradise. Now, Jesus is a creator son, is he not? And he originates from where? Here he is right here. Paradise creator son Michael. He originates from God the Father and God the Son. We haven't got there yet, right? But he is able, at any time, he chooses to go to paradise and be with God the Father and God the Son. Okay? So when he says that, someday you will sup with me in paradise, that's exactly what he means, because he knows that that individual, that thief on the cross, will progress over 1 billion years and end up in paradise. So one day, when he gets there, Jesus will show up and say, did I not say when we were hanging on the cross together that you would be with me in paradise? You know? It's kind of like that, well done, my good and faithful service. Gives you goosebumps just to think about it. You know? So we got this thief that did nothing probably his whole life worthwhile, right? And because he turned his thought adjuster, he turned his mind to God the last seconds of his life, he will have the opportunity to stand before God the Father and have supper with his Son. Right? What an amazing concept.
It says something else too, right? It alludes to the fact that possibly God knows our decisions, in other words, what we're going to choose, and where, in other words, there is a question somewhere whether he knows the sin or not, because ultimately there is a choice we have to make. There's no that choice. It seems, at least when the choice is made, apparently, he knows what's going to happen. Perhaps he doesn't know before. I don't know.
I think he does. All right, remember, paradise is time and spaceless, right? So when Jesus says, someday you will sit with me in paradise, it's already an event to Jesus. Because Jesus came from paradise. There is no time, there is no space. So when he perceives that this will happen, it's good as gold. It's already happened to him.
Yeah, but what I missed before, I didn't see that before I asked the question. I just realized as I was asking the questions or making the comment, is that at that point it is quite possible that we don't know the life of that thief, and we don't know if there was. I suspect there was something worthwhile in his life, but we don't know.
Maybe we don't know.
But it is quite possible that he had already made his decision to follow the path of God.
Right.
Yeah.
And when the decision he made, then we know, even though he hasn't fused us yet,
Yeah.
this is a sure thing. It's just a matter of time.
That's
Whereas my
yeah.
question was more, before making the decision, does God know what decision we're going to make?
Sure.
That's
Yeah.
which is.
But okay. I wish I had the other chart I had now. There are two types of beings in the universe. We don't think about these. And next week when we have the other chart, it'll be right here. And then right next to God the Father. Okay? Right next to God the Father there's two boxes. One of them is with will and without will. Okay? And that's the two types of beings in the universe. The ones with will are us, the finite beings, right? Or any creative being for a purpose of making decisions. And that's the difference between other types of beings. Some of the other celestial beings are without will. They just are. They're existential, things like that. Those do not have free will choice. They go through their processes in their life already attuned to God the Father. In other words, they don't have to choose God the Father. God the Father, to them, they are part of God the Father. They are that choice. In other words, they're the outcropping of the choices of God himself, right? So those would be non-will creatures. They don't have to have will.
But Lucifer had will.
Lucifer has will. All the sons of God have will. Okay? All of them. But that's an important box. When you see that next week, y'all will see exactly what I'm talking about. There's two types of beings. There's will creatures and non-will creatures.
Some of the non-will creatures will run into on their minds, so we'll are these Belonga?
Mm-hmm. Oh, there's tons more, well, than just those. Because there are lots and lots of creatures, like some of the physical controllers, some of the mechanical things, or energy controllers, and things like that, that are beings that are there for a specific purpose, but they don't have a free will. In other words, they are there to do that job, and they do it without decision. Okay? They do it over and over and over and over. And the reason we don't interact with those beings is because they have no will to interact with us. They have no interest in us.
And are those the eventuated beings?
Those are eventuated type beings, right? Or they can be created beings without will, like the Sporangian, people like that, that are created for specific purpose. Think of it this way: when you get, and some of these are like companions and things like that. Now those may have will. I'm not sure. I have to look it up. But there are tons and tons of beings you will run into on your paradise ascent when you're going from down here up through all of this, that are there to help you out. They're the beings that make sure you get spiritual food. They're the beings that make you, if we have Morancha food, they would be the ones that would be the cooks and bottle washers and all these things that have lives that are surrounded serving other beings. They don't have lives of their own. Their whole purpose in life is to serve other beings, right? And we'll probably run into tons of those that they don't tell us about, Somebody's got to take out the garbage. Somebody's got to keep the flowers up. Somebody's got to, And that's not it's the choice of the Creator sons and God the Father that his children not have to do that. What's your job? Spiritual concepts, right? Your job is to help each other out, is to bring your brothers along. What's the number one job when you get to the first mansion worlds? You have to teach. That's right. You have to teach all these that come behind you the things we're doing right now. This is what we do. When you get to the mansion world, instead of me up here doing this, it might be you up here going, I need a new stick. Anyway, okay, so we got through, everybody kind of understand absonite's a combination of the finite and the absolute. It's between paradise and time space, right? And that's the type of beings that you have in Habona, right? So they're not worried about time, right? They're not worried about space because they just are there. They've always been there. Okay, we're going to discover this in a minute. And then we have finite, right? And we're in that category, right? We have a body. Right? We start out here. We're just above the animals. We have the 7 adjuvant mind spirits to influence us, right? And that's the finite being.
All 7 of them.
All 7 of them. Only humans have all 7. Let's go to the next slide. I'm going to try to get through at least God, the Father, God, the Son, and God, the Spirit. Okay. Deity and divinity. Let's see. Who is next? Pam, would you like to take that?
Sure. The universe of universes presents phenomena of deity activities on diverse levels of cosmic realities, mind meanings, and spirit values. But all of these ministrations, personal or otherwise, are divinely coordinated. Deity is personalizable as God is pre-personal and superpersonal in ways not altogether comprehensible by man. Deity is characterized by the quality of unity, actual or potential, on all supermaterial levels of reality, and this unifying quality is best comprehended by creatures as divinity.
Okay, let's hold up there for just a second. Let's go over a little bit of this. Okay. We're talking about deity. And where does deity come from? This is an easy one.
Deity comes from God.
Comes God the Father.
Right.
Right? Where does deity flow? It flows through the original Son, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Down, well, you can actually go through right here. Just do it backwards. It goes from the Father to God the Son, to God the Spirit, to the Supreme Being, to the 7 Master Spirits, and they're down here somewhere. I'm not exactly sure. They're on this chart. To the Ancients of Days, and then the Paradise Creator Sons. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the flow of deity down. Right? Now, think of it, deity as this way. If you want to be in contact, our direct contact with our closest part of deity, who is that?
God,
God adjuster. Right. Who's the second one? The easy one, huh?
Spirit of truth.
Spirit of truth.
No. That's not part of that. That is part of the overall
Michael.
deity, but that's part of the thought adjuster too.
Michael.
Michael. That's right. Michael, the creator son, right? Because deity flows down through him. So, you think about this. Also, it's kind of like the path of the fathers. Remember we talked about that a little bit once before? You have a personal father, right? Somebody who was donated the sperm for you, right? Okay, and then what's the next father you got? That would be the...
Heavenly Father.
Huh?
Oh, Creator Son.
No.
Well,
The Most High.
No. It's your local, it would be your planetary prince normally, but for us, you know, we have temporary ones, right? That's the father of our planet,
Oh, okay.
right? Okay, so the next one above that would be Michael, right? He's our father. He's our creator father, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then well, I skipped one, the Most Highs, right? We have the Most Highs.
Most High is the redemption.
That's right, Most Highs. There are our constellation fathers, are they not?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then Michael, right? And then after you go through that, we would go directly to who? The Ancients of Days, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're our fathers, okay? And then from them, there we would actually go through the 7 Master Spirits, right? Because there's 7 Master Spirits, one for each super universe, right? And then eventually we'd end up back at God the Father, right? So if you think about these things, everything's in steps. Deity's in steps, and the Father's in steps. Okay. Let's go through the second paragraph here. Okay, personal and otherwise. What other kind of divinity would we run into that is not personalized? Over here, right? These are not personalized deities. They're created by God the Father and God the Son and God the Spirit, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're part of God the Father. So would there be a personal God? No, they wouldn't. Now, the Supreme, will that be a personal God? Yes. Why would the Supreme be a personal God? The Supreme will be a personal God because he or she, whatever it is experiential, and it's coming up from the finite to the divinity of God, right? So that would be a personal type God eventually, right? When we reach light in life, this will be a personal, meetable, experiential God, right, that we will be able to stand before, right, or experience, right? And that's what they're talking about, personalizable God. You see that there? Does that make more sense in that? Okay, so you got the pre-personal Father fragments, right? You got personalizable. What other personalizable God do you have?
Super.
No, not yet. Let's still think about this. The personalizable would be the
supreme? Is it the
the
supreme?
thought adjusters that's been personalized.
Yeah.
Would you consider that?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So Jesus' thought adjuster on this earth that was personalized, that's deity personalized, is it not?
Mhm.
Personalizable. Okay, and then we have super personable, and then talk about this is not fully comprehensible by man, right? And these are probably these over here, right? These the second levels of the Trinity, right?
Super personal, yeah.
Super personal. They're above personality. They're a part of God that's inseparable. Does that make sense? Okay.
Okay.
All right, but if you read it that way, this second paragraph makes sense now, doesn't it? You got the pre-personal, the unpersonalized thought adjusters. You got the personalizable, the thought adjuster. The pre-personal, which is the thought adjuster before he fuses with us, right? And all right, I missed one thing. Okay, let's go on. Deity is characterized by quality of this unity. Remember, I was talking about universal unity. And actual or potential, and in all supermaterial levels of reality, and this unqualified quality is best comprehended by creatures as divinity. Now, let's think about the supermaterial levels or actual or potential. What would be a potential deity? How about the thought adjuster, or man before he fuses with the thought adjuster?
Yeah.
Now think about this. When we fuse with the thought adjuster, does that make us part of deity?
Mm-hmm.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's a what? A father fragment. So you become what? A son of God. Just like Jesus is a son of God.
But at this point, are we potential or no longer potential?
We're not potential until we fuse. We're actual when we fuse.
We're potential now.
So we're
We're
potential now.
That's what we're talking about here. That's why if you know what these things mean, these paragraphs come out and talk to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're potential right now, but we turn into what? Actual when we fuse with our adjusters. Mm-hmm. Now, does that make you God? No. It makes you part of the divine pathway, right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, look at it this way. You're going to become divine, right?
This is where the Mormons get their doctrine.
That's right.
Right.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. Okay, let's go on to the next one.
Deity functions on personal, pre-personal, and super-personal levels. Total deity is functional on the following 7 levels: static, self-contained, and self-existent deity.
Okay, that would be who? God the Father, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Potential, self-willed, and self-purposive deity.
Okay, and when you consider the supreme part of that, self-willed and self-purposeful deity, right?
How about us?
And how about us?
Yeah.
Does that not do we not fit in that category?
Well,
Okay.
do we feel there an evolutional?
Huh?
Well, there is later evolutional.
Evolutional. That's really us.
Mm-hmm.
Evolutional.
Right.
So it's supreme, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's evolving, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's keep going.
Associative, self-personalized, and divinely fraternal deity.
Now you could almost say the supreme is part of that too, couldn't you? Because the supreme is self-personalized in the sense that it's being created, right? Did that stop? 1 minute? Okay, let's restart this. Let me ask y'all this before I restart that. It's going to be 12 o'clock in about 5 minutes. Do y'all want to knock it off at 12, or do you want to go a little bit longer?
Longer.
We're about half an hour late. Let's go to the 12:30.
Okay, well let me restart the meeting. Give me 1 second.
It's not long enough.
I have a question while you're doing that. If you want me to ask it when the tapes roll again.
Yeah, why don't you wait and... Well, before we move on, what was your question? Do you remember?
Yeah, I remember.
I've got this recording. Let me stop it.
No, okay.
Okay.
2.4.
Okay.
Number 1, it says
Static.
static, self-contained, and self-existent deity. And you said, okay, this is God the Father. So my question is, how can I even phrase this? Is there a part of him that's just him without anybody else?
Yes,
There is.
that's what they're talking about. Your static, self-contained self-existence. In other words, the only deity in the universe is what? God the Father.
But he still contains all that other stuff.
He that's what we're talking about, unity, right?
Because that's
He
where
never
I'm going.
moves.
Deity is unity,
Yeah.
according to the book.
Right.
Deity is
He
unity.
is unity.
So
That's
there's
right.
no such thing. I have a reason for asking.
Yeah, go ahead. Let me follow.
There's no such thing as just God the Father minus all this other stuff.
There's not.
There's
No.
no such thing
No.
as that, right?
No, there's not. But the concept of static deity, okay, and it really could apply to almost any deity. It doesn't have to be just God the Father, but really the only static deity in my mind would be God the Father. Why would that be? Because God the Father is in paradise, central paradise.
He
Right?
doesn't move.
He doesn't move. He doesn't go away, and he encompasses all reality. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So if he is really the only self-contained deity in the world, I mean in the universe,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because he never moves, he never changes, any of that. Now when I say he never changes, I'm not talking about all this experience, all these other deities, right?
I understand.
These are outcroppings of
He gains his experience
evolution,
through all.
right? Yeah, these are evolving deities, right? But God the Father, we have a problem. We're going to discover that. We're going to study these terms. He's the truly, along with the Son and the conjoined actor, are the truly only experiential deities,
Mm-hmm.
because they know from the beginning of time, even before time has ever been kept in track of, through the future eternity. That's why they call him Exodus. He's the only one that knows what's happening and what will come.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The Trinity.
Mm-hmm.
Right? God the Trinity. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But even the Trinity would probably be considered static too, the Son and the Spirit, because they're not changing.
Mm-hmm.
But they are changing in the sense that they're experiencing more, right? You know,
They're gaining experience.
yeah, we're going to go through this in a minute, this thought, expression, and action. God the Father is the original thought, okay? God the Son was the original expression of that thought, the Word, right? And God, the conjoined actor, is the original action of that expression, right? And we're going to go through that in a minute here. Let's keep going. Okay, let's go ahead.
Creative, self-distributive, and divinely revealed deity.
Okay, what do you think of when you think about that? Creative, self-distributive, and divinely revealed deity. There'd be two beings I would think about.
Not the spirit?
Huh?
Not the spirit?
And the paradise.
It's possible, but who comes to mind first is the Son,
The sun.
right? Because he creates what?
The paradise.
Michaels, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Spirit and the Son, because they create who? Well, really, the Spirit creates the local universe Mother Spirit. Y'all can't forget, you can't have a Michael without creating a local Mother Spirit.
Right.
You know, we keep, I can't stress this enough. You can't have the male without the female influence, right? What's the female? The creative Mother Spirit, right? You can't have a universe without action. You can't have a universe without movement of material, can you? Who moves all this stuff around, right? It's the conjoined actor, right?
Yeah,
And we're going to see that in a second. If we get to it, we're going to see that in just a minute. Okay, so we would call that that. Now, we go on to the next sentence.
Evolutional, self-expansive, and creature identified deity.
Who is that? Right there.
Us.
The supreme.
Yeah.
The supreme, right? Meaning experiential finite deity. Don't forget that the supreme comes from what? A finite deity. Why does she come from a finite deity? because
At the beginning.
she had a beginning, and it's on the super universe level, right? That's very important, and this is going to all come together a little bit later when we talk about this, and I'll bring this up again. Okay,
Creature identified deity.
That's right.
He has our experience.
that's right. Now, let's keep going.
Supreme, self-experiential, and creature, creator, unifying deity. Deity functioning on the first creature identificational level as time-space overcontrollers of the grand universe, sometimes designated the supremacy of deity.
Okay, do y'all see how these overlap with each other here? You just talked about the supreme being the evolutional, right? She evolves, right? But she's also the supremacy of deity. In other words, it's that finite up to infinite that creates this supremacy of deity. In other words, you go from a static deity to a supreme deity. Does that make sense? Now, why would they call her supreme? Because of this, right? She's growing and she becomes more and more and more supreme, right? She starts at nothing and goes up to God the Father, right? And she is part of God the Father. So, you remember we talked about Christ being self-limited? Y'all remember that? The discussion of Christ being self-limited when he was at the resurrection? It's the same principle. Because the Supreme probably already knows what's going to happen before it happens, right? Because it comes from God, right? But she has to limit herself because of the supremacy of deity, right? She's growing with
And
experience.
actually has to have the experience.
She has to have the experience. And where does she get the experience? From us. That's right. That's right. Okay. All right, let's keep going.
Ultimate, self-projected, and time-space transcending deity. Deity omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent. Deity functioning on a second level of unifying divinity expression as effective overcontrollers and absonite upholders of the master universe, as compared with the ministry of the deities to the grand universe. This absonite function in the master universe is tantamount to universal overcontrol and super-sustenance, sometimes called the ultimacy of deity.
Ultimacy of deity. And where does that come in? Okay. Here we go. Right in here. You see these universal absolute, unqualified absolute, qualified absolute, eventuated ultimate? You see this? Okay. This is what they're talking about. The ultimate Trinity here, supreme, seven supreme creators. This is all about this part of this chart. We're going to go into this deeper. But one thing I want you to see here is this. You see this where it says second level of Trinity of Trinities, right? It also says what? Absolute Trinity here. You see that? So this evolving, we're talking about of the ultimate evolves these other parts of deity, right? These are the things that are coming out. And these have to do with what? The outer space levels, right? These are not going to come into full fruition while this local universe is not settled in light and light, because God does everything with a purpose, right? So he's going to wait until this entire seven super universes is in light and light, right?
And he's going to send them out?
And this is already happening. 7 outer space levels, they're already doing their jobs, okay? Because those outer space levels are developing over time, right? Millions and millions and millions of universes, right? Little universes, big universes. They estimate, 70 universes the size of our number 7 universe, or Vonton, right? 70 in the first outer space level.
Are evolving.
Are evolving. 210 in the next outer space level, I think it is.
Super universes.
Super universes. Just the size is ours. So we have an expansion that's exponential, you know. That's why it's important for us to understand it. You know when they say the two minds, when they come together, explode exponentially? That's what they're talking about. Because we have 3 deities. The mind of 3 deities, right, coming together. So what does that create? That creates a deity potential that is unbelievable, right? See how everything's related? So when three of us get together, you think that our minds can't come up with thoughts and concepts that are, 21 times what we were before? Of course we can. That's why they teach us that. When we get in here and pray, why do you need three people to pray? Somebody tell me. Simple. You need three people to pray because anything you ask that's within the will of God, when you have three people to pray, you have your thought adjuster times three. You have a trinity of God with three people, right? So when you ask something of God the Father, you think He listens? Of course He does. You think the Son listens? Of course He does. It's coming from a Father fragment, right? Think of it that way, and the next time you pray with someone, you go and remember when we go and pray for her husband. We don't do that for us, do we? We do that for the comfort of him and for her family, right? But by doing it together, she can go in there and pray all she wants to by herself, and she'll get her prayers answered. But think about it when we go in there and pray. There's 7 or 10 of us. You think God pays attention? You know He does. And He may not answer that prayer right this minute, but that does not mean that prayer won't be answered, does it? It might not be answered in this lifetime. But He don't ignore us, Sometime in the future, God will answer those prayers, right?
If it's His will.
If it's His will. That's the trick, right?
But I still don't understand the difference between from one person praying on your own and praying and 3 persons, or even two versus 3.
Because you take the mind of man, one mind, and you add 2 others to it. So the thoughts basically multiply themselves times 3 immediately, right? Exponentially, all right? So you, instead of just getting those 3 people, you get like the square root of 3 people. Right?
But in terms of what? In terms of having more power to
more power,
to
spiritual
reach
power. No, it's not a wish. You can't think of a prayer as a wish. A wish is something.
I think I said reach. To reach
God.
Our
That's
pastors who are wise get their whole congregation together
to pray
together.
That's right.
See, when you have one person, that's one. Power of one.
Power of one.
And then you have 2 people, that's squared.
That's square.
Okay. When you have 3 people, it's cubed.
Yeah.
So when you have 4,
then you have 4 people, you have 10 to the 4th power.
Yeah, with each person, it goes up exponentially.
Exponentially.
But
That's the exponential.
what goes up, is it the quality of the expression, or is this the power at which it reaches the universe Father, and as a result there will be a more rapid, or more is more inclined to listen, or
All the above.
Associate.
All the above. Association. Because you have a group of believers that are requesting the same concept. You're not just having one person, well, maybe he means it, maybe he don't. We have a group of believers, those that we told that anything that's possible that on this earth you can have. This is our earth. This is our universe. And we are sons of God. So anything you want, you can have, if it's within the will of God. Right? That's where people mess up. They say, I have anything. You can't have anything. Because, number one, God's will is not going to let you have anything because it would be more harmful to you than good. Right? We could all sit around here and pray to win the lottery. You think we're going to get a lottery ticket? No. Right? Why? Because the lottery ticket itself would probably do more harm than it would do us good. Right? We'd all become greedy. We'd all want to have control. We'd all want to do this or that with it. And all this concept of...
sit here and listen to Roger and...
Yeah, go by charts.
and
That's
all.
right. Yeah.
It's non-spiritual.
That's
It's
not spiritual.
non-spiritual, and it would be partial.
That's right.
Why would we win versus someone else playing?
Exactly. Yeah. If they have a circuit board for people praying for the lottery, I would hate to see what it looks like. Here comes another one.
Did you ever see Bruce Almighty?
Huh? Bruce Almighty. There you go.
He said everybody won.
Yeah.
He said, well, out of the lottery system.
That's right. Okay, let's keep moving here. Are we done on this slide? Because I got cut off the end of this slide.
Yes.
Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay. These are a little bit, okay. Here we go. Do you know you want to take the next section?
211. The finite level of reality is characterized by creature life and time-space limitations. Finite realities may not have endings, but they always have beginnings. They are created. The deity level of supremacy may be conceived as a function in relation to finite existences.
Any questions about that? That's pretty straightforward. So it's the finite, right? The level of reality. Only things that are created that have a beginning. Now, does God the Father, God the Son, God's Spirit have a beginning? No.
What about the creator sons?
The Creator Sons have a beginning. Yeah, they do. They haven't always been there, right? There was a point in time when all 700,000 of the current Creator Sons were created. Well, actually, it was a million, but the 700,000 are in the current universe. We don't know what.
Well, so in other words, everything else other than the original Trinity is like considered fine.
You can consider that. Not
It's
everything,
not
though, but because there are other beings that are would not be considered fine. We're going to go on. That's what this is about, right? Okay.
212. The absolute level of reality is characterized by things and beings without beginnings or endings, and by the transcendence of time and space. Absoluters are not created, they are eventuated. They simply are. The deity level of ultimacy connotes a function in relation to absolute realities. No matter in what part of the master universe, whenever time and space are transcended, such an absolute phenomenon is an act of the ultimacy of deity.
Okay, so they are eventuated, right? That means they're not created, right? Remember that term I told you a while ago, absolute?
So being they were not created, they're not finite.
They transcend time and space. In other words, they're not affected by time and space. What would be an example of that? That would be Havona, would it not? Mm-hmm. They transcend. Remember that first chart I showed you?
The pilgrims of Havana?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The pilgrims of Havana are absolute beings, right? They were not created beings. Havana, the people that lived in Havana were not created. They were what?
Eventually.
Which means what?
It means they were created, but they don't have a beginning.
Yeah, they're not created though. In other words, they appeared.
Right, they
Okay.
appeared, but they
did not have a creator though. Not like a creator sign, right? This is a hard concept. And what we're talking about here is, here we go, transcendental, eventuated ultimate. You see this part right here, page 12? That's what they're talking about. This is the second level of Trinity.
So they weren't created.
They were not created, they were eventuated. And that's why they're called absolute beings. They're between ultimate. What would be an ultimate being? God the Father, God the Son, God the Spirit, right? And they're above finite. What's finite? Humans, right? Things that are created. They're in the level between. And when you look at that's why I showed you that chart of the super universe. You have paradise. Paradise are ultimate beings, right?
is it ultimate or absolute?
Huh? Absolute, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Absolute. Absolute beings, right. Paradise is absolute beings. The next section out away from paradise is what?
Absolutely.
Absolute. They are eventuated. In other words, as these beings were needed, they appeared.
Right, but they some form of deity made them appear.
Some sort of
right,
deity
so
made them
they have a source, they have an origin,
They have a source and origin.
creator, quote unquote, right?
That's right.
But my understanding is
The source would be who, though? It's important that you understand. That would be God the Father. Right? Or what? God the Father and God the Son? Or God the Son and God the Spirit. Right? They would have a source. Right?
yes. Well,
Okay.
I'm not sure
Yeah.
about that if you
Yeah.
say so, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But at least my understanding of this is the fact that they say here, these beings without beginnings. So they appear, but after they appear, you cannot say like they appeared in time and before they didn't exist. They have appeared in a level where there is no time or transcended time and space, which means that for us, with our mind, we cannot understand it, really.
Yeah, we
but
can.
we can't. But this is what the concept means, is that, again, created, quote unquote, but not eventually. But it was created without, by the time you are created, not on the timeline. It's not in time.
Yeah, no time.
No time. They have always, it's as
Not
if
a
they had always.
series of events.
Okay, let me give you an example of how confusing this is to the human mind. And this will make it even worse. God, it says in the Urantia book, God the Father created God the Son, right?
Right.
And then created God the Father, God the Son created the infinite Spirit, right?
What, does it say that? Created?
Well, yeah, that's what it says.
Okay.
I'm gonna just throw a monkey wrench in here. They've always been.
That's right.
That's what I mean.
It's just a way of explaining it so we understand it. Right? That's the problem of trying to teach the finite mind.
3 and 1, 1 and 3.
Yeah, they have always been. But that does not take away from God the Father being the source of all beings. Right? He's still considered our Father. Okay. Even the Son considers him his Father. Even the Spirit considers him his Father. And they say that they have always been. But somewhere back in time, we think that they were created, and in essence they weren't. They all habituated.
So in other words, we are talking about concepts that are not.
We don't have anything to reference.
That in our frame of reference, in our time-space constraint, finite, it's just beyond that. It's like just, you know,
Think
it
of
can
it
be
like
projected in
this.
time.
When you're 3 years old, okay, you wake up one morning, you come to your mom and says, "Mommy, how did I get here? I don't ever remember not being here." To a baby, there is no time, right? When you're that young, you just have this concept of now, right? Mm-hmm. And so you try to teach your baby, well, you know, you're and your dad and I got together and we loved each other, and boom, there you were, you know? But to the baby, their concept is, I've always been here. I'm a baby. This is my job, to be a baby, to have fun, right? And to the baby, if you never explained anything else, that baby, when it got to be a teenager, if it never looked into it itself, it would say, I've always been here, wouldn't it? Because it has no recollection of not being here. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's the way the universe works. That's the way God the Father is, right? So even if he did have a beginning, he would not remember not having a beginning, would he? Because he's always been. How about the Son and the Spirit? They have memory of only not ever not existing, right? Just like the baby, right? And so to them, they're existential. They have no beginning and no end. And even if they did have a beginning, it is non-consequential because we as beings live within what? Them. So if they did not exist, we would not exist. So what does it matter if they started or they didn't start? It doesn't. You know, these are the philosophic questions that philosophers sit up and think about all night. Wait a minute, if it had no beginning, because we know everything's sequential. But in Havana, there's no time, no space. There's nothing. There's no time except for the sequence of events. Right? This is how things happen. And if you look at the records on Paradise, it probably has records back in the eons and eons and eons and eons, but they still have no record of things starting, would they?
They say that they don't.
They don't. Yeah. You can look back as far as recorded time, and this is the way it is, right? So, and the other interesting concept too is that time comes out of the top of Paradise. How is that the time comes out of the top of Paradise, and yet Havana has no time? Paradise has no time, right? There's another mystery,
It doesn't have any time at all. It doesn't have. I seem to recall.
Paradise has no time.
There is no having a time.
That's no time. It transcends time and space. It also has no space. That's even a stranger one, okay? Because it has no space. Because we're going to learn what the material of the Havana is in a little bit here. I don't want to spoil the surprise, but that's coming too. Okay.
Well, and also the Father, Spirit, and the Eternal Son created paradise.
That's right. Yeah. We're going to
And time.
I want to do this before, we're going to probably end here, but I want to draw you a picture here real quick. And I'm going to skip ahead just a couple slides here. I want y'all to think about this week while I'm not moving. Space creations. See, this is none of this stuff is easy to go through. Here we go. I want to draw y'all this picture. I'm going to explain it to you real quick before we go. Okay. We're talking about all these things, different things like this. Okay? This is God the Father, right? The first thought, right? The first expression God the Father had was the Son, right? And he's this blue circle, right? This is the Son. You see that? And he's the very first expression, right? So God the Father had a thought. His first expression was the Son, the Word, right? Now, when God the Father had the expression of the Son at the exact same moment, and this is what's important, is this. At the exact same moment, what appeared? Paradise, right? And that was a result. This is important. That is the result of the Father's thought turning into expression, the Son. So that expression immediately creates paradise.
Why?
Huh? I don't know. The mystery of the
Everybody needed a place to hang out?
Everybody, they needed a dwelling place for the Son, I guess.
Right.
You know, so, you know, you got God the Father sitting floating around in, you know, the ether, whatever you want to call it. He didn't need a place because he's the source of all things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as he had the first expression, he had to have a place for the Son, I guess. Makes sense to me, right? Okay. All right, what's the next thing that happened? The Father and the Son wanted to have an action, okay? This is this part right here. You see this? Conjoined actor. And when they wanted to have this action, that's when, can you see that yellow?
No.
Let's get another color here, a little bit better. I hate to do this in orange, but that's what we're going to have to do. Leave it white orange. See that better? Mm-hmm. Okay? Yep. And this is the infinite spirit, right? Mm-hmm. And this is the first expression of the Father and the Son. So you had the thought, right? Mm-hmm. And you had the expression of the Son, and together they wanted to do something to get together. So what happens? The infinite spirit appeared at the exact same moment. I'm going to use this in blue. The billion worlds of Havana appeared around paradise.
So this is to put it in a very simplistic way, this is the outworking of his plan.
Yeah.
It had to have a beginning, so just
Yeah.
that's how it began.
No, there is no beginning.
There's no beginning. That's what's so
This is a projection
Beginning
in
of
our
creation.
time and space, in our in our space level, but there is no beginning.
Now, if you go up, ahead a couple slides, you'll see this chart on this. But what's interesting is this: the Creator Son and the Universal Father and Eternal Son ends up creating, their action together ends up creating 700,000, well actually there are 1 million. This area right in here, their action together creates the Michaels, okay? Mm-hmm. And there's 1 million of these.
Roger, can I just throw out there that he's the eternal mother son also?
Yes, he is. He's the eternal mother son. All right, and this is what's interesting. They call the infinite spirit he, okay? But he creates all the she's of the universe, doesn't she? All the angels.
It's supposed to be the womb. So
the womb, that's right.
The she.
All right, and the universal Father and the infinite spirit is the orange. I forget what that is. We'll come back to that. Okay. I believe that is the Trinity teacher sons, if I'm not mistaken. The orange. I could be wrong. Yeah, I think this is the Trinity teacher sons. It could be all three, but I can't swear to it. I'll have to look it up. Okay. And the eternal Son and the infinite Spirit creates the magisterial Son, that's the green here, and they create the magisterial sons. Yellow sons. And what else? The involvements. The magisterial sons are the involvements, right? And the infinite spirit. So, because of this Trinity, the automatic reaction of these coming together creates these groups of sons. Now, each one creates a different son. The Father Son creates the Michaels. The Father Spirit creates the Trinity teacher sons, and the Son and Spirit creates the magisterial sons, the Epochals. Right? So there's three groups of sons, the three main groups of sons, come directly out of the Trinity. You see that? That makes sense? Mm-hmm. Now I want y'all to think about that this week, because when we get into the rest of this, that's going to become important. But one of the main things I wanted to point out is this. The Michaels. This is the path of divinity right here. Mm-hmm. Right? That's the very first action of the Father and Son after the creation of the Spirit. Right? Do you think the Michaels are important?
Yeah.
Well, they're all important.
Infinitely so.
Infinitely so. That's right. Now, keep in mind, too, that there's 1 million of these, but only 700,000 are being used right now. Right? So, what does that leave us? That leaves us 300,000 that are in reserve.
And that was back in 1935.
That was back in 1935.
I wonder what they've been doing all this time.
No, it was back in 1934.
I'm sure they've been busy helping out the other Michaels, learning from the other Michaels. Now, question is this. There's not enough of them to fill up the first outer space level, is there? Mm-hmm. If there's 70 universes the size of our mountain out there in the first outer space level, 300,000 Michaels isn't going to get it, is it? No. So how's that going to work
They're
out?
being recreated and
They're going to be
evolutionized.
more eventuated. Michael.
Maybe, or
Yes.
there may be another possibility, right? Think about it. There might be something even more marvelous out there to come. This is just speculation at this point, right? What if these 300,000 Michaels are sent out to these outer space levels as teachers to teach other sons of God the Creator capabilities, right? What if with an outers a part of that plan? You know, they're teaching us like crazy all the aspects of administration, aren't they? In the universe.
Now, eventually,
this is purely hypothetical. Could it be that Habona will expand to encompass the 7 existing super universe levels
No.
once they settle in light and light?
No. Let me tell you why. Okay? Because the 7 super universes are finite in nature. The planets are finite, are they not? They're material. And we're going to find out a little bit later in the study that, I need to shut up for the day. We're going to find out later in the study that the material of the universe is totally different than the material of the super universe, different than Havana. And the material of paradise is completely different from Havana, right? So we have 3 different types of material of being. So that's why I'm saying Havana won't expand into the 7 super universes, because it's a different type of material, number 1, and a different type of being, because Havana is time and spaceless, is it not?
Mm-hmm.
It's like paradise. Transcends time and space. The finite universes is what? Space and time oriented.
Right.
Right? So you can't, the two shall never mix. Why do you think they put the dark space bodies between them? To keep the gravity there, 1, right? But maybe there's some other functions between the absolute and the finite. And the absolute and the absolute. Right? Different types of material. Is this not interesting?
Yes.
There's a lot to it.
Fascinating.
It really is. Okay, I'll tell you what, let's do. Let's quit here, and I'd like to say a little prayer. And you know how to stop that, please? So just hit stop, and then just hit save. It'll have a